Hello everyone, thank you for joining me. This is Salesbuildr TV. I'm here at CompTIA ChannelCon and I'm with David Claxton. David is an independent consultant working with many MSPs. And David, you're here to give a talk today about EBITDA and how you can go about improving it as an MSP and why that's important. That's why I brought you along to have a little chat about it. Do you want to tell me a bit about what this talk is and let people know?
Absolutely, James. And again, thank you to the Salesbuildr team for inviting me to today's session. So, one of the critical things that any MSP wants to make sure they're doing is they're having a good rapport with the business investment community and the lending community. And my topic on improving EBITDA multiples is really focused at how can we ensure that MSPs are getting the best business valuation for themselves for either potentially selling their business downstream or getting more investment money into their business through their lenders.
So it's not just about I'm looking to sell, because many of the people watching this perhaps won't be ready in that position yet.
Absolutely. So this goes across the spectrum. Hey, I need to improve my business because I want to create greater relevance for it. B, I'm looking to get more investment into my business. So how can I convince the community that I have a strong going concern, or in that scenario where someone is trying to sell their business?
So I think a good place to start then is, we talked about EBITDA. Many of the people watching this perhaps won't be familiar with that term.
Sure.
Should we just first of all explain what it stands for and why is it an important metric? Why is that the one we use?
Absolutely, James. So EBITDA stands for earnings before interest, taxes, depreciation, and amortization. Think of it as a proxy for measuring your operating cash flow or your net income. And primarily, EBITDA was the measurement, say 15, 20 years ago, to basically make a decision whether or not a company was showing the value and the future potential that would attract investors or lenders to their business. However, some sketchy accounting that occurred in the early 2000s with those .coms started to create some concern, especially among the titans of business, that EBITDA should not be a standalone measurement because you could utilize that tool relatively easily and overinflate your revenue as well as mask some of your cash hemorrhaging.
So a bit of manipulation going on there potentially.
So where we are today in the 2020s is more of a comprehensive look at, hey, using EBITDA or an adjusted version of EBITDA, plus looking at the cash flows of business and some other metrics to really get a good understanding of the business's value. But most of those categories outside of EBITDA could take over 2 years to really make a major dent into improving those multiples in your business valuation, while EBITDA is something that you can absolutely start impacting just within a couple of months.
That's interesting. So I was always under the impression that would also be a long-term project to put the things in place that would really make a proper impact on the EBITDA valuation. What are some of the things we can do then in the short term?
Absolutely, and again, the thing, that's a great question, and some of the things that we really need to focus on is looking at the low-hanging fruit in improving that business valuation, and that always starts at the top line with revenue. So revenue is critical in basically having a quick ability for you to modify your EBITDA in a positive light. So some of the things that you can do from an EBITDA perspective is taking a hard look at the way you're pricing your solutions, your services, your products. Are you making sure that you're looking carefully at your cost of goods sold and building in the right things to identify what the right margin should be in the business? And are you setting yourself up to look at ways to actually streamline that business and taking some of the associated cost out and creating those operational efficiencies.
How do you do that? I'm interested to know. I mean, obviously it's a broad area, but can you give us any examples of how you get an area where perhaps there's cost that there doesn't need to be, or that can be refined?
Absolutely. So one of the ways to do that really is in scale and in standardization. So standardization is one of the biggest challenges to an MSP today. There are just too many legacy homegrown systems out there, and with those legacy systems, it actually takes your workforce away from solving problems that can lead to new added revenue opportunities and growth for you by having you focus on repetitive tasks that you don't need to. So by moving and standardizing more of your business and doing that, you can basically move that to either an AI approach, you can move that to some great third-party tools, and you can move that to lower level technicians so that your L3, L4 technicians can focus on those non-routine activities that your clients are demanding right now, that all have additional revenue opportunities to basically add on.
Wow, okay, so that's the first place we need to look at, potentially the automation side of things and the standardization. So where do we look in terms of more revenue? That sounds easy, we just sell more, right? What's the answer to that one?
Well, it's selling more revenue with profits, high margins behind it. And in order to do that, we need to look at a few areas to make sure that's occurring properly. One is easier said than done, but something that MSPs really understand is improving your revenue mix. You want to get away from, whenever you can, those one-time revenue opportunities, those time and material opportunities that you might have scoped wrong that are going to basically be lost leaders for you, and quickly transitioning them into monthly recurring revenue.
Is that always the way? Because I do hear, I often, I hear about this, everything must be services, but there are MSPs that I talk to and they're like, look, do you know what my project business is like? That's where we get most of our money from.
Yeah, without a doubt. Now the challenge is, and as AI is entering, the work stream as well, it's project management we get, but in order to really create efficiencies, after you've done a few projects, you want to start transitioning that into a monthly recurring revenue stream, because that is where you could start focusing the right talent on the right projects, and you can create efficiencies for your clients on solving their problems faster and basically opening up brand new opportunities that you didn't even think existed. And let's face it, the more we can do for our clients that have strong profitability for us, and as long as we're pricing it right and we're being transparent to the client, they can build our additional cost into their business and basically share that with their end clients, the better we're going to be.
Interesting. Okay, that makes a lot of sense. Can I ask you probably speak to a lot of MSPs about sort of pricing models and things. Do you see a particular, like the best MSPs you work with, the most profitable ones, how are they packaging and pricing? Is that something you get involved with? Or?
Yeah, absolutely. In fact, one of the vendors here, ConnectWise.com, puts out some great statistics for MSPs to be able to use through CompTIA that spell out on a quarter-over-quarter basis what's best practice. What are those top line, let's call them major league champion MSPs doing from a margin perspective, all the way down to the bottom performers in that 25% quartile. And we're right now seeing about a 20% difference in terms of what you're seeing at the top MSPs that are earning about 20% on margin versus those low-end ones that are earning basically 1 to 2 points and just staying above water. So the goal is, how do we basically replicate, how do we do the things that those top line MSPs are doing? And there's a lot of great opportunities and tools that can help you through operational efficiency, through containing things like SG&A costs, not controlling it. None of us can control costs, but we need to make sure our costs are basically always running at a rate that's below the rate that we're bringing in cash. So that's really important. And then making sure that our revenue streams are constantly being automated and improved, and cutting down on things like margin limitations where folks are using the end of the month, the end of the quarter, the end of the year to say,
oh, just to push a revenue number rather than profit.
Let's just push the revenue number up so we can make our number, but not using tools like non-cash benefits, things like access to your executives, things like access to being able to sit down and discuss new ways for your client to earn.
So instead of discounting, it's basically making them feel like they're closer to the business. Do it on a service level.
Doing it on a service level, because the easiest thing for a salesperson to do when a client gets angry is to basically discount your way down. And let's face it, once you do that, you can't basically get your way back up. Just as an example, just a 10% reduction in your price point from a discount generally will cost you anywhere from 25 to 33% of your total margin.
Wow.
So those mistakes can be really critical. So the goal again is we really need to get great discipline out in the marketplace to focus on using expenses, using ways to drive business outcomes rather than just revenue. So good business outcomes is what we're focused on, in getting our revenue to the right place with the right mix, rather than just any sale, not scoped properly, or simply time and material, if it's not going to transition eventually into a monthly recurring revenue stream.
I love that. So we've got some good things there. So we've got controlling our costs, increasing our revenues. Any other areas for improving your EBITDA? If you're any other short-term measures we can take?
Absolutely. I mean, cash is king, so we need to be very disciplined at looking at our cash flow. Again, 20 years ago, you can get away with basically just driving your EBITDA margin up, and investors were cool with that until they started overly investing in those .coms and running into serious problems. So cash flow is critical. So we really need to have a disciplined look at our cash flow. Are we driving, for example, I'll give you an easy one. Are we turning our accounts receivable into cash faster than we're paying out our accounts payable? You know, easy said than done, but the bottom line is we need to make sure we're taking advantage of that cash advantage.
Is this not using credit lines? Is that what you're saying? Where you can, trying to avoid using that?
Yeah, where you can. You know, taking advantage of vendor incentives and discounts where we can. Finding ways again to basically drive the business so that we're basically not creating leaks in our margin. And then the other area again is just constantly looking at ways to create greater automation in the way we actually drive our revenue in. So one of the biggest adages, and it's been true forever, is every day that a client doesn't pay its bill, it exponentially is likely to default. So how can we use tools to better understand that marketplace, and again, create efficiencies and make sure that we are really focused all of our time on driving revenue that's associated with our skill set as an MSP.
Yeah. I love that. That's some really tactical stuff. That's some really good short-term measures. We don't want to spend too long going into it, but in terms of it's a huge area. The other broader financial areas, let's say you're looking at, okay, I want to make sure that my valuation is the best it can be in 2 years. Can you just give us a bit of a flavour of what other things you need to look at?
Absolutely. So from a revenue perspective, what's your mix like? Are you actually showing year-over-year growth in your revenue? Investors absolutely want to understand that. Some of the other key areas that you're really going to be concerned about is what's going on with my balance sheet. Now, many MSPs will say, well, why should I care about my balance sheet?
Yeah.
I don't hold inventory. I don't have that much long-term debt.
Yeah.
I generally don't have shareholders. But the bottom line is the balance sheet gives us great clues into our liquidity and to what's going right and wrong within our business. So we want to look at that.
What's typically going wrong? What of the MSPs you talk to? Can you think of any where you think this is like the mistake they always make, or any? Can you shed a bit of light on that?
Yeah. So one of the things is the way they're basically managing their debt in their balance sheets. The other things that we're seeing again, and we talked about it earlier, is what we'll call some of the margin leaks in our business.
Right.
So,
okay. Yeah.
So that's really important. Some of the other areas that are critical outside of the broad spectrum is really understanding our cash flow. Do we have the discipline to make sure that we're seeing more cash come in than's going out? So are you creating a cash plan that's looking at this quarter and next quarter? Are you creating price waterfalls or profit waterfalls that give you a visualization on how are you doing day over day, month over month, quarter over quarter, and in essence driving your revenue up, but also making sure that your margins are driving up even more exponentially with that percentage.
How's that normally done? How do they do the waterfalls? Are we just getting Excel out, or is there more sophisticated tooling that takes care of this sort of thing?
There are some great tools out there that will actually do that for you. Basically, there's too many to count, but there are great tools out in the marketplace that will actually build those waterfalls out for you, and you simply need your staff to plug and play. And as AI starts developing, more and more and more, you'll be able to basically just associate and tie that with an API that's actually going to gather that data rather than have someone manually type in that information. But we're starting to see that more and more. But the goal is, there are great tools out there that will help you visualize, your overall price to profit, measurements.
Love that. I have to say, I spoke to someone last night actually who was talking about some sort of future casting, and I think the future is going to be incredibly sophisticated when it comes to modelling, what you want from your business versus what the outcomes are going to be. David, it's been fascinating talking to you. We've never had anyone come on and actually speak in detail about the EBITDA side of things. I really, really appreciate it. Hope your talk goes well tomorrow.
Will do. And I thank you so much, and glad to spend some time with you, James.
Excellent. Thanks very much.
Take care.
Have a good show. Cheers.